Hey everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in today's video, I want to talk about tariffs because since that fateful day on April 2nd, when the president announced Liberation Day and reciprocal tariffs, I have been predicting a sharp downturn in the economy. I just did not see what good tariffs would bring. In fact, I only saw things getting really bad. Tariffs make everything more expensive, so people buy less. So since that day and up until this point, there's been a lot of uncertainty in the market, with both consumers and businesses holding on to their money until they can better predict where things will settle. That uncertainty has been a drag on our economy, and for the stock market, that has translated to volatility, low volume, and record highs that make no sense. So we were all waiting to see where the chips would fall on these trade talks, and I think we know a little bit more now, although things are always subject to change. Now, the reason I care about this isn't just because I follow the market. I care because if the economy starts to recede, as in a recession, then the stock market stops moving. So here we are with our self-inflicted tariffs, which range from a baseline of 10% to as much as 50%. So the big question is, what happens next? What kind of economy are we walking into with tariffs this high? To answer that, let's go back in time and see what happened when we inflicted tariffs of this magnitude on ourselves. So the last time that America imposed tariffs on itself at this scale was in 1930. Right after the stock market crash of 1929. After the 1929 crash, the American government did something that it never did before. It started interfering with the economy in the name of controlling it. Now, before the stock market crash of 1929, the economy would every so often face a downturn, but it would eventually rebound without the government intervening. But this time was different. The government intervened by passing the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. This was basically a law that required a tariff be paid on over 20,000 imported things that Americans use. The thinking at the time was this: if we make foreign goods too expensive, Americans will stop buying them and instead buy American-made goods. That, in turn, would boost domestic demand, which would create jobs. Seems like a good idea, right? Because after all, politicians are full of good ideas. Except it wasn't. Thousands of economists at the time warned that this would backfire. They said that it would kill trade, shrink demand, and actually cause more unemployment. And guess what? That's exactly what happened. Within just 5 months of those tariffs going into effect, unemployment shot up from 9% to over 26% in the following 2 years. And it stayed in the double digits for the rest of the decade. Let that sink in. People stopped buying foreign goods, but instead of seeing jobs boom, we got massive unemployment. That economic disaster became what we now know as the Great Depression. Now, I know some people like to say, well, you can't blame it all on the tariffs. Sure, but let's not forget that these tariffs were meant to increase employment, and they did the opposite. So at the very least, it failed. At worst, they made everything worse. Looking back now, nearly 100 years later, it's pretty clear what happened. The US isolated itself and called it protectionism. That's some marketing, right? Take away our option to buy something made abroad by making it more expensive and call it protectionism. Well, here's what Nobel Prize winner, father of modern economics, said about protectionism.
We call a tariff a protective measure. It does protect. It protects the consumer very well against one thing. It protects the consumer against low prices.
In reality, these tariffs implemented in the name of protection are really just protecting businesses, not us, the consumer, but business. And the government is protecting them from outside competition. Without competition from foreign manufacturers, domestic manufacturing can charge as much as they can get away with for what might even be an inferior product. Here's a prime example: BYD. So BYD is a Chinese electric vehicle company. So now BYD is making solid EVs. Some of their cars even sell for around $13,000. And these are technologically advanced cars of decent quality. Compare that to what you would pay for an entry-level Ford EV, $23,000. Or Tesla, $42,000. If BYD were allowed to sell those cars in the US, a lot of Americans would jump at that $13,000 option, because who wouldn't? It's affordable, it works, and it gets you from point A to point B. Electric, clean, and cheap. But guess what? You can't buy BYD in the US. Why? Because it's not allowed. Not because the car isn't safe, not because it's a scam, but because the US government has put up trade barriers, tariffs, regulation, all kinds of roadblocks. And why would they do that? Well, you've got corporations like Ford, GM, Tesla, working behind the scenes with politicians. It's a cozy little arrangement. The car companies don't want the competition, and the politicians, they want support, campaign donations, political cover, so they help each other out. These corporations say, hey, we need protection from these low-cost imports. And the politicians say, sure thing, we'll call it national security or job preservation or American pride, whatever sells. Just like that, the public gets sold a story. A nice sounding campaign about saving jobs, protecting American manufacturing, standing to China, whatever. But behind the curtain, what's really happening? The corporations are protecting their profits. The politicians are protecting their power. And we, the people, are left paying higher prices for fewer options. It's a classic bait and switch. They get us to support something that feels patriotic, but actually harms us in the long run. And that's the game. It's not about what works best for the consumers or even the country. It's about preserving a system that benefits the few at the expense of many. And that's the real cost of protectionism. When we block out cheaper, high-quality imports, not just Chinese EVs, but shoes, clothes, TVs, refrigerators, noodles, whatever. We're not just limiting consumer choice, we're setting off a chain reaction, because trade wars go both ways. If we stop buying goods from other countries, they're going to stop buying from us. It's retaliation. We should expect it because it happens every time. And that's exactly what played out in the 1930s. We put up trade barriers, and then so did everybody else. And the result? The entire global economy shrank. The world slipped into a decade of low living standards, high unemployment, and economic stagnation. Not just here in the US, everywhere. So why do tariffs tank an economy? Because cutting ourselves off from the world makes us backwards. First, we lose choice. With foreign goods tariffs, we're stuck buying only American-made products, often at high prices. And without foreign competition, companies have no reason to innovate, improve quality, or lower prices. They can sit comfortably knowing that you have nowhere else to go. Second, we shut the door on opportunity. New and small businesses can't sell or rely on global markets, so their growth stalls before it even starts. Meanwhile, the only real winners are the big corporations in bed with the government, shielded from competition and guaranteed a captive customer base. And that's how monopolies are born. Here's the thing. The only monopolies that truly exist are the ones that the government creates. Yeah, they keep a handful of owners and employees safe, but it's a tiny minority. For everyone else, life gets worse. Workers are worse off because a flat or even shrinking economy means fewer jobs and fewer opportunities to move up. Consumers are worse off because they're stuck with one product, one price, and no alternatives. That arrangement guts American prosperity. Cut off trade partners and you cut off buyers. No buyers means no sales means no production, and no production means lost jobs. And when jobs disappear, paychecks disappear. No paychecks mean no spending. No spending means businesses close. And when businesses close, prosperity evaporates, standards of living drop, opportunities vanish, and the country slips into a poorer, harder way of life. That's the cycle, and history has already shown us exactly where that leads. So here's my take. Zero tariffs, full free trade, because with free trade, we get more choices as consumers. Companies have to compete for our dollar, and when they compete, we win. American businesses can sell to the entire world, and more sales mean more jobs here at home. That's the kind of economy that raises living standards, sparks innovation, and keeps us competitive. So the next time you hear a politician selling protectionism as patriotism, remember the history and call it what it is. Push back, ask the hard questions, and don't buy into the bait and switch. And because all the information in this video I learned from Professor Thomas Sowell, I'll leave with his words.
Of the present President of the United States and his tariffs. it's painful to see what a ruinous decision from back in the 1920s being repeated. Now, insofar as he's using these tariffs to get very strategic things settled, and that he is satisfied with that. But if you set off a worldwide trade war, that has a devastating history. Everybody loses because everybody follows suit, and all that happens is that you get a great reduction in international trade.
Alright guys, that's it for today. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, especially if you trade or invest. How are you guys planning to navigate this impending situation? Have a wonderful rest of your week. I was going to say weekend. Depends on when you're seeing this. And I will talk to you guys soon. Bye!